How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. We're wearing a whole bunch of red, but the deck we're going to be playing today is probably one of my favorite purple decks that I've played so far. I know, just released the video, the 500 subs, about Digimon, which was really my big transition into purple playing, but this deck goes crazy. Take a bunch of pieces that aren't supposed to work like this and then abuse it thanks to a keyword. It's very, very fun. We are going to be playing the dog deck, so let's get into it. Because Digimon starts at the eggs, we will start with the eggs. So your first, we are running a 3-2 split. This could be 4 and 1, but since you are kind of, you run through eggs, shall we say, it's worth having the 5. You don't really want to suddenly be caught out of luck with 4. So we're running 3 Demi Mirror because it's one of the best generic purple eggs, and then we are running 2 of the BT13 Pseudomon. Pseudomon, when you trash a card in your hand with one of your effects, trigger draw 1, it allows you to go a little bit more positive off of other stacks dying. Ideally, when you're doing this, you're pushing out a stack that you're going to be sticking on, so your dog stack, this is ideally the better egg to see, but early game Demi Mirror is totally fine because you're not going to be seeing these Pseudo as useful. So, those are the eggs. Start with the rookies now. So we'll open things up with the 4 of Ignite. This card goes just insane. I can't wait to get the new event pack version because not only does it have like the colorblind stuff, but the full purple board is going to look so clean with this card. It is the backbone of the deck. It's one of your best level 3s to bring back because it does allow you to kind of use it as removal for pesky cards on your opponent's side of the field, but also its inherit is fantastic. You want one of these in raising and then eventually one of them in trash to set up later. So 4 Ignite, and then we go through the 1-ofs. 1 Fasco, this was cut down from 2. On deletion, draw 1, trash 1, but also if it lives for whatever reason, its inherit is there, which is also draw 1, trash 1 at the end of your opponent's turn. Helps you if the card isn't dying, or if you need to go over it with a level 4 with an on deletion effect. If they choose not to clear it, then you're still getting value at the end. Tamers is just on deletion, draw 1, helps you replenish your hand, and if you don't need to set stuff in trash, it's nice to sometimes not always have to keep your hand nice and thin. Then we are running 1 Gazi, 1 Psychemon. We did originally run a 2-2 split of this, but we decided to be slightly less ignorant, which has resulted in 4 Ignites and then 4 1-ofs. But being able to shut down some decks with memory blockers is super important, and against Royal Knight, Psychemon kind of solos the deck. And then, of course, 4 of the robots. Your Proto Digimon is again one of your best rookies, but you can't digivolve over it, so it is, I'm kind of classing them separate. It is a level 3, so you do get to play it back with things, but realistically these are your rookies and then your 4 robot pieces. So that is all your level 3s. Now we go into the 4s once again. We'll be starting with the actual Digimon, then going into the robots. 1 Anubismon because it's a 1, and then 3 Scatter Mode. This is down from 4, and a couple of Switch, the guy that really started like pushing this deck and was the huge inspiration for like how I started building this. He's running this as a 4 of in his original list. I don't know, like at the time of recording, his new list hasn't dropped, but the kind of like thesis he did on the changes he made, I don't know if Scatter Mode is also dropped, but a lot of people run this at 4, so you can guarantee that you're getting your draw pieces and things like that. I wanted to see 4 of Ginkaku because our methodology for it is kind of less building on the aggressive draw trash OTK and instead playing a little bit more of a mid-range chip, and then just finding 3 checks kind of like burst damage out of nowhere in order to try and finish out game. So I wanted to see 4 Ginkaku because it means I can find the piece that I'm looking for to go 3-4-5 in the back, or 3-4 and then push for lethal off of that. I need to see the Ginkaku in order to make that more consistent, so I upped it to 4. And then of course 4 more robots. The Digimon AT, use it as your float target, a very, very aggressive draw and trash, and you can use it for some pseudo hammer sparks on your opponent's turn. Very, very cool card. But yeah, those are the changes that my list runs, where it is 4 Ginkaku instead of 4 Scatter Mode, just simply because of the playstyle change. Yeah, a couple of switch is definitely the blueprint that a lot of us have been playing from. There are some Japanese lists that also make use of some other removal spells and other ways of doing it. You'll see kind of when we get to the options how our lists are very separate. And I'll go through a couple of playstyle things, but for the most part, a couple of switch really is the inspo for the way this deck was built for Blue Meramon, because it is a great way to set up trash. It's nice and cheap to go into if you're going over Genkaku, because it does have the draw and trash, as well as having retaliation. Sometimes you just need it as a body to swing over. Sometimes you go over your free-played Eismon and just swing into a level 6 or something just to take it off the board. And it can just be pesky. Sometimes it catches people, especially if you're pushing out of raising and then evoing into it. They're not ready for it to be like a pseudo kill spell out of nowhere if they've left something sideways. And then again, 4 more robots. The Digimon XT, we're not playing an errata, so or is it errata? Kurata even. We don't get the free play off of this, but it is a blocker. You can go into it pretty early, and of course it floats into a different Digimon, so sometimes it just makes it incredibly sticky. Only 8 level 5s, because that's really all you need. And then full level 6s, we are running 4 dogs, because what is the dog doing? And then 3 plants. This is also another change. The original list the Switch had was a 4 and 2, but he really sold me on 4 Nidhogg in his new list and talking about the ways that I hadn't really thought of applying Nidhogg. So the most recent change for this week was we cut one of the turbo pieces for the 3rd Nidhogg, and I've loved it, the change. So my list doesn't have space for 4 currently, but we were able to make space for 3, and 3's felt fantastic. You're never digivolving into this, you're only using it for its trash effect, and it is all turns, so you can use it to just hammer spark people kind of out of nowhere. And yeah, this is all the level 6s you need. Again, if you're not liking the options that we show up later, then you can just run a 4th Nidhogg like he does. Then the reason that we don't have space for 4 is because we do actually still run Tamers. 1 Mimi, 1 SD6 mat, and 1 Mem-Tamer mat. Because sometimes, as much as this deck can play on 1 memory, it's sometimes so much more comfortable to just be able to play off of 3. So we are running the 1 memory tamer. It lets you bring back a Nidhogg, bring back an Eismon, bring back like anything you're missing, bring back your calling, which is fantastic. This deck can really abuse calling by bringing back 2 Nidhoggs as well as popping something that then floats. So being able to do that again is fantastic, thanks to the map. The original was 2 Mimis, but we found in testing that whilst the Mimi is nice to be able to just scam people on their turn, more often than not, a lot of your kill spells, you're using this to make it 0, but you can also use the mat to make it 0 as well, and you don't have to rely on an option card in order to get the memory back. So Mat Ishida was functionally the same, because I could swing, gain a memory back, or I could swing if it doesn't die, kill spell, then gain the memory back. So we were testing using Mat Ishida as an extender instead of just the Mimi, and we found that the 2-drop Tamers are really nice both for that, and since most of your option cards also result in something dying, Mat Ishida is still a fantastic option, and that's why we're running the 2 cheap ones and then the memory tamer, just to have a little bit more of the ability to play from 3 memory, because this deck, less than 3 memory sometimes is game, so having 3 just makes it so much easier to kill people, even if things aren't dying in security like they're supposed to. So 3 Tamers still on the list, and then option cards to finish things out. 1 of Glaive memory boost, because it does again allow you to bring something back. It sets you up a mem boost if you need it to then push for game if you're missing the memory tamer. And then as far as kill spells go, it is 2 Deathclaw to pop blockers as well as pop your own Digimon, 1 Calling, so that's as many as they'll let us play, and then 1 Demonic Disaster, because again it gives you the unsuspend if your stuff is dying. It lets you play sometimes if you don't have your Anubis, how you can just still have something swing and then unsuspend without necessarily needing to float into something that gives you rush. And also in security, it lets you on play a level 3 or lower, which can sometimes cause a hammer spark in security, because the Blue Meramon as well as the Ignite Mons inherits are all turns if a Digimon is played by an effect, which means sometimes they can hit security and just get hammer sparked and lose that 2 memory. It's fantastic. And then speaking of, we run 3 Night Raid, because again, hammer spark and security is fantastic when you've got the Anubis stack out, but also it is kind of like a hybrid for game, but you can just loop it multiple times. It sets up pressure out of nowhere. If you can bring back an ignite off of this and then use it to pop something that didn't die, then you're gaining massive value out of it. Basically, every night raid represents a check in your lethal turn. Because, like I said, we don't necessarily play for the OTK, like Switch and some of the Japanese lists do. We kind of go chip chip and then find 4 damage out of nowhere. And having these night raids in hand really helps that, because it just makes it like pseudo unreactable. And people aren't really able to play around it. So that is the list. We'll go into like a couple of just like quick links so you can kind of see what our game plan is versus just going for the OTK. Okay, so here we have a rough-ish example of like a board state that you could be in. Say you've chipped your opponent like maybe twice and they've set you to 2 memory. We're missing the memory setter, but we do have a tamer. We're going to have the mat in this example because it is one of the cards that kind of differed from Switch's list and some of the others. So you've got an ignite, you've got a Ginkaku, and we've got our Sunomon. You can push up on 2 memory, and you might be thinking, oh, that's, you know, a bit greedy, but it's fine, because we go into Blumeramon for 3, putting them to 1. We'll draw a card. Let's just take anything, doesn't really matter, and then we will draw 2 and trash 2. So let's just take like a scatter mode, and sure, we'll take an XT. Draw the 2, trash the 2. I like to keep my trash separate so I can keep my Gizu pieces and then just anything else separate. Since we've trashed a card by an effect, we gain a memory. Since we've trashed a card by an effect, we'll draw 1. Then you can go into the Anubismon for 3. Just draw a card. And then we get to play a Riki from trash. We'll play the Proto-Guzmon, still maintains its on-play effects, draw something, trash something. Doesn't really matter what. Either way, gaining back 2 memory. Actually, in this case, you do actually need to trash a Nidhogg in order to keep turn, in order to gain that extra memory. So we pushed out with 2, we've gone from a 4 to a 6, and then we can, of course, start the chain. Proto-Guzmon, assume it dies. Spin 2. Out comes the level 4. Once again, you can draw 2. Doesn't really matter what you're getting at this point as long as you're still finding the pieces that you need. You can trash 2, tap a mat, gain a memory. And go for that Gizamon if we need to. Again, get the spin. And as long as you're like identifying what the important pieces are, then you can keep going for the loop as much as you need. Just keep it going, keep it nice and simple. Demonic Disaster, just pop this, float into a brand new Gizamon. Say we need to then draw 1, trash 1, out comes Eismon. It's the sort of things where we've only spent 1 memory whilst going for this loop, and you're still just getting rush after rush after rush. It shows that, like, whilst the OTK is fantastic, if you've only done 1 or 2 chips, like we did like 4 checks there, assuming something happened, and that's without committing the Anubismon, you can do all of this and only need to find 3 pieces. You don't have to fully extend for an OTK. This is like just a very messy example of just like, you just draw a couple of pieces, you push out on 2 memory with a Nidhogg in hand, and you're able to go into Anubis and kill someone. So we went for a little bit more of find your guaranteed stack, find your Ignite, find your Ginkaku, find your Blue Mirror, and then go from there. And if you have an extender in the form of one of the Tamers, it can just push you through. That was only committing 1 option card. Any Night Raid is an extra check if you need it. But you can also sometimes just push out in some matchups. You can just come out with a Blue Mirror and not go into the dog, and you just leave something with retaliation they have to like not interact with by battle, otherwise they're losing their stack. But if you are just choosing to go for gas, then if they've left you on 1, Anubis for 3, you're gaining back 2, and you don't even have to go into something that's a draw 1, trash 1. If you need to loop a memory blocker of some kind, it can be there. You know that if you swing it, Night Raid is there, it comes back. you've still got so many more options that you don't have to worry necessarily about trying to find 5 checks in one turn. The way we play, you can chip your rookies, you can just send them in, donate them to the Lord, and then bring it back with the dog. So that is kind of our game plan. This is kind of the changes. Again, massive shout out to Switch, because he was the one that really like laid the blueprint for this deck and really got me interested in it. I've been testing it for a couple of months now, but the most recent changes, I held off on doing a list because whilst my list was different, more and more testing caused us to make more and more changes, and I wanted to see what his like final thesis was on like his evolution of the deck. And I absolutely have loved comparing our lists and bringing in this third Nidhogg for a little bit of extra gas, a little bit of flexibility. I played against the mill loop, and that was fantastic. They were just setting up the loop for me, made it way easier to just kill them off of like one memory. Even Machine Dramon, you're able to play around Analog Man, Bloom Lord. Ghazi is much more important because the Hydra comes up, but you can play under Quartz because you're not unsuspending. You're just bringing new bodies in and swinging, so the Bloom matchup can actually be pretty decent. So I think the deck has legs and it's a real contender. More and more testing to be done, and I will hopefully slowly swag out the deck with more pieces. If I do make any other big changes, I'll just keep an eye on like the pinned comments. But yeah, once again, massive shout out to everyone that has been testing this deck and driving the price up of my dog. I regret not buying the shiny version way back when. And I hope you enjoy this version of the Anubis loop, because as a wise scholar once said, what the dog doing?